Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, we check in with the Sorcerer Supreme, Victor Von Doom, battle the forces of Galactor with the Gatchaman, cross up the Cold and the Cola Wars, and are generally just sort of marvelous. Plus, we'll check in with another founding G.I. Joe member, Sergeant Shayna O'Hara, codenamed Scarlett. Think about it, who's always gotten by on the kindness of ninjas. We go back, Jack, we do it again. The wheels turn around and round, which may refer to Samsara or the Coney Island Wonder Wheel. But no matter when, no matter where, the MSP is on the air.
Welcome to issue 1113 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you so much for downloading and checking us out this week. A little bit later in the show, we will be taking a look at our, fourth or fifth installment of the Energon universe as we take a look at Scarlett Volume 1 from Kelly Thompson and Marco Ferrari. But first, I think we should probably look at some comic books coming out this week. Let's see. What do we? Oh, last week, I guess we can look and see what Matthew looked at last week.
Why you gotta say it like that?
I'm always, I'm always looking forward. What's the hot thing coming up? That's why. So what did you look at last week?
Well, now I'm just sad. I looked at hot new thing, Gatchaman, Only One Earth, #1, written by Tommy Lee Edwards, art by Nuno Plati from Mad Cave Studios. Of course, if you're not familiar with the Gatchaman, but you're old like me, you may also know them as G-Force. You may also know them as the Guardians of Space. If you know them as the Eagle Riders, get out. But here's the thing. Gatchaman, now at Mad Cave Studios, is the story of five acting as one, 5 cybernetic ninja teenage superheroes who are fighting against an invasion from outer space. So in this particular issue, we actually get a focus on probably, honestly, the best member of the team. You may know him as Jason. In this story, as in the Japanese original, he is referred to as Joe. Condor Joe, G2. And if you also remember the show, he always drove a little Indy car, like a Formula One race car around. That was his battle vehicle. In this issue, he's literally in this little European duchy. He and Ken, the leader, are trying to protect the Queen from an attack from space. And the way to do that, their cover is that Joe has come to race in this kind of I don't know if I'd call it like a French Open thing because it's not France. But Princess Gemma is being targeted from space, and so he's going to win a race and also protect her. So that kind of argumentative back and forth between the characters, G1 and G2, Mark and Jason, Ken and Joe, whatever you call them, is always a lot of fun. And so when the focus is on Joe having to do his thing as a racer and Ken keeping, constantly trying to keep him on task and on mission and not focused entirely on beating all the other people, you do get some nice snarky back and forth. And then all heck literally breaks loose as the forces of Galactor attack. And it is mighty impressive work. I am not familiar with Nuno's work before this, but I'm going to start being familiar going forward because it is really, really well done. Crazy disaster madness as the whole country is basically bursting into lava and falling into the ocean. So as the story ends, the Queen, who was once the princess, is considered probably dead. Joe is considered probably dead. Ken is considered probably dead. No one can communicate with anybody. But as we find in the very last pages, Ken may not be as dead as they think he is. But of course, the evil, shining, luminous one from space is laughing an evil laugh. Wahaha, we have destroyed the little duchy. And it makes for a really impressive first issue. I had been reading Gatchaman and then stopped because it went to the 5 miniseries, and then we rename the miniseries, and then we have another miniseries. And I just sort of lost track. That's not necessarily saying anything bad about that marketing strategy. It's just something that doesn't necessarily work with my particular brain. But I will say this, I really like this issue. Surprisingly, I like this issue a lot. And I say that as someone who is a fan of the Gatchaman / G-Force property. 4 slices of meatloaf for Gatchaman, Only One Earth, #1. Really beautifully drawn. It's an interesting start to the story. And I want more. I want more right now. So I'm coming back next time to see, is everybody dead? Did they melt the entire, European Union? What's going on? Who's alive? Who's dead? Awesome stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. French Open is tennis, by the way.
I don't care.
You might care if you're talking about Joe having to do race cars through a tennis court. That may be a little
very small track.
Everybody
That's
gets
the thing
eaten
is
by
everybody
lava.
is
What am I thinking of that French thing where they drive through France? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, which is French for the man.
So speaking of One World Order, this week from Marvel Comics, this is their big event following their huge Vampires Take Over the World event, where Victor Von Doom becomes the Sorcerer Supreme, and he got rid of all the vampires. Asterisk did not. But he's been gone for 6 months, and now he suddenly comes out of hiding, and he is just like, listen, everybody, I am the Sorcerer Supreme. I am also the ruler of the world. All nations will bow before Victor Von Doom, and you will all become citizens of Latveria, even though you will all have your individual states, like the United States would be its own state, Canada would be its own state, et cetera, from around the world. But they would all be Latverian citizens, according to Dr. Doom. And he promises, hey, no fighting among citizens of Latveria, so put down all your weapons. There's nothing, no world wars will happen. Second of all, there will be no hunger. Everybody must take care of everyone else. There must be free health care for the entire world. And yes, that may mean that it may be a financial burden on some places, but this is what Doom demands. And we together will rise up and we will be one great Earth. And sure enough, all the leaders of the world are just like, yeah, sure. No problem. And even Baron Zemo shows up and says, hey, we will not allow this. We are Cobra, attack. And then the next page, we find out that Baron Zemo is like, oh, no, I agree with everything Doom says. And we will go around and we will do all the rebuilding of schools and disaster zones. We will dismantle all of the landmines that are scattered throughout the world. We will work to rebuild this world for Doom, because he is our Sorcerer Supreme. And the Avengers are just tearing their hair out because they're like, what is Doom doing? Is he using magic? What is he doing to control all of these people? Surely Doom must be like doing something bad. And so the Avengers decide that they're going to attack both Hydra and Latveria and Dr. Doom directly. And they find out that Dr. Doom may have killed Baron Zemo and replaced him with a Doom bot. And the Doom bot is like, sure, I'll do whatever, Doom says. And the Avengers release this video out into the world and say, look what a monster Victor Von Doom is. And of course, Hydra is like, oh no, you've killed our leader. All these things that we said we were going to do, we're taking it back. And so they just start destroying the world. And the Avengers are like, yeah, I guess we need to stop Hydra now. And Doom is like, look what the Avengers have done. They have destroyed this utopia. And Doom shows up and taking out Hydra and putting the Avengers in their place. And the people of the world are kind of like, yeah, Doom was actually going to do something good, even though he's a horrible person and killed people. And Doom's like, yeah, so what? I killed Baron Zemo. Look what Hydra was doing. And now the Avengers have ruined it all. The Avengers are the real bad guys. And I tell you what, the opening pages, you can see Doom's argument being made, and you might be sitting there going, yeah, so it doesn't sound so bad. And then you're like, oh no, this is bad. And even though this is an event that's probably planned a year plus ago, because now everything's one big event after another. I wonder sometimes we as creators, artists, storytellers, whatever, if maybe we fly a little bit too close to the sun when we're like, you know what would be wild, ladies and gentlemen? What if Dr. Doom took over the world and he wanted to do everything that he said he was going to do, and he actually does it on the first day that he takes over the world, and he's making it a great place, and then the people who think they're the good guys are actually the bad guys because they're trying to tear down everything Doom is wanting to make. Wouldn't that be an ironic story? And then January 20th hits, and we're just like, man, you guys flew too close to the sun with this story. Because it really reads, I mean, you can read it as Dr. Doom if you want to, as crazy Dr. Doom Ladvarian, or you can read it as the Pumpkin Spice Palpatine, and it reads exactly the same way. And it feels a little bit too real when you read it that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's actually a really interesting story because the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and Doctor Strange and Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and a bunch of other random heroes are all part of this, Captain Marvel. And it just feels like, wow, we're kind of gotten played this entire time. Even though we told people that Doom was bad, people didn't listen to us, and now everybody hates us. And so I want to see how One World Under Doom plays out. This is a 6-issue miniseries, I think, or a 6-issue event that'll spill out into all of the other titles in the coming months. But it's fascinating, a little bit too close to home, but I found it very, very fascinating. Ryan North, R.B. Silva. I'm giving this 4.5 slices of meatloaf out of 5. Thoroughly enjoyed it, more than I thought I would, even though, again, it is very much ripped from the headline. How did they come up with this big event, Matthew? How did Marvel come up with this big event in just the last 20 days? In the last 20 days, how did they come up with this whole plan in the last 20 days? It's fascinating. I will tell you that it is fascinating from that aspect. And of course, you know that Doom is not a good guy. He tells a good story and he gets the rubes to believe him. But in the end, I hope he's being brought down by the Thunderbolts asterisk. And we'll see what happens. But fascinating story. I'm not a huge fan of Marvel events. This is one I can kind of get behind. I can kind of get behind this story just for, first of all, how over the top it is. Even though it is holding up a mirror. This is Marvel's Black Mirror. That's what this is. That's probably the best way to describe it. One World Under Marvel's Black Mirror. It's out this week, and I think you should go check it out. Maybe you have a different read on this. If you do, you can let us know in our Discord. Go into the comic book section and just say, no, Stephen, I think you're wrong. I think One World Under Doom is actually how the communism is bad. Sure. Okay. Go ahead. Show your work. Coming out next week. No, 2 weeks from now. Yeah. 2 weeks from now. It's Pop Kill from Mad Cave Studios.
Pop Kill number 1.
Everybody's talking about Pop Kill it.
So Pop Kill is a story about 2 rival soda companies. So that's what the pop is.
Okay. Yeah.
The 2 companies, again,
from the headlines.
I just, if you read the solicitation, it actually tells you way more than the story actually does. But these 2 rival soda brands are run by twin brothers. So they're related and they hate each other, and they are willing to go extremely hard into corporate espionage and sabotage in order to outdo each other. In fact, like, this is about soda, right? But some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about later in Scarlet is pretty much on brand with what happens here. Like, it's on par, rather. Like, that level of blood and assassinations and carnage around these pop brands. The art is good. I liked it. I think that it does a good job defining the characters, but there's kind of generally an issue with that I'm having with this, and that sometimes as I'm reading it, it very, very much seems like it wants to be satire.
Yeah.
And at other times, it seems to want you to take the characters seriously. And I guess maybe there's a possibility for both. But basically, this is mainly the story of a corporate saboteur who is trying to get close to a scientist for the other company, and is trying to basically, the scientist is a lady, the saboteur is a guy, and is trying to like woo her. And the way that she's played, she's very like normal, like very natural, but everything around the other guy's life is like very intense and like over the top. And you're like, well, he's a spy or whatever, but like there's a scene in which he's in bed with like 8 women, right? And it's like, right, like that's the typical, like it's such a cliche now of like, you have a character who's like a cool guy or a bon vivant of some kind, and then when you first see him, he's in bed with 2 women, right? Which has been flipped and reversed and remixed. I've seen stuff where like the person that we're following is a lady and she's in bed with 2 women, right? Or like whatever, like that in and of itself is enough of a cliche, enough of a meme, that when we cut to this and there's like 10 people in that bed, it's like, okay, this is like a very over the top version of this joke. And the guy is like very like aggressively cool and sexual and a playboy. He talks to his evil soda boss, and he like kind of makes fun of him and he like pokes fun of him and stuff. And it's like, this guy is like clearly extremely dangerous. And then, when we see the other person, it's like, she seems very normal in her job, being a scientist for an evil soda pop conglomerate. So when we start seeing them together, it kind of clashes for me. It's just a tonal thing. I think that future issues can smooth this out. I don't think it's like an absolute deal breaker. I'm going to give it 3 slices of meatloaf. It's an above average comic. And like I said, the art is good. Specifically, I think what's good is like the design of it. Like both brands of soda are like similar, but they have different brands, and you see a lot of that branding and like posters and machines and stuff like that. So that's fun to look at. But yeah, 3 slices of meatloaf. Check it out. I'm gonna see if I can get issue 2 here in the next month and see if it like it just kind of like evens out the tone.
Is it like Dyspepsy Cola and Cloaca Cola or something?
It's
Popco and somebody else.
Yeah, it's like Popco and Fizz something.
Oh yeah, Fizz 1.
Fizz
Yeah.
did. Oh, that's kind of neat.
Jimmy Palmiotti's been talking about this a lot over on his Blue Sky account. So if people want some more from that, they can go check it out. This feels maybe a little bit. You've read some Mark Russell stuff, Rodrigo, right? Flintstones and some of his more recent stuff over at Ahoy Comics.
Sure.
Does this feel kind of like that?
No.
Okay.
It's kind of the opposite. Like, I think, when like a lot of that Hanna-Barbera stuff was like, here's a familiar guys to tell you like a more complex story. This feels like here are the trappings of a story that should be more complex, espionage and stuff like that, but it's about soda.
Okay.
So it's
All right.
kind of the opposite. And you know, and that whole aspect of it is fine. You do watch this and you're like, oh my God, is this all for soda? Which I think is one of the things you're supposed to feel. It's just kind of the characters are existing in sort of different spheres for me.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to point out that you can tell that Rodrigo is a man of the world by his review just now. Because
I keep saying soda.
You said soda, you said pop, you said cola, you said soda pop at one point. You've used all of the different words to describe a Coke or a soda or a pop or whatever in your review. So you didn't stick with one, which would say, "Oh yeah, you're definitely from the Midwest."
I mean,
you're definitely from the South.
I've lived in like 5 different states in the U.S.
Yeah.
So definitely,
that's why I said you're a man of the world.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can go check out this review and many more if you want to pick these up. In the show notes, there are links to our Amazon affiliate link. A little bit comes back our way if you are so inclined. You may be saying, Stephen, you had a great interview last week. More interviews on the way? Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, more interviews definitely on the way. I got something confirmed this morning. Now, it won't be for next week's show. It'll be for the week after because we're not able to record until Thursday next week. But it's one that I'm very much looking forward to because I've been going back and forth with this person for a while, many years, saying, oh, you should come on the show. Yeah, we should do that. We should line each other up. And then we could never get lined up. And now we're lined up. And I'm excited to talk to this person next week. A lot of people still very positive about the Matthew Rosenberg review from last week. And we have the full unedited hour and a half or hour and 20 minutes, however long it is, interview that you can get and listen to in its entirety over at patreon.com/major spoilers. Sign up. You can, if you want to, you can just buy the interview outright for $5 and you can listen to the whole thing, or you can subscribe to the Major Spoilers podcast for $5, or I'm sorry, the Major Spoilers Patreon page for $5 a month. And every interview that we release in its entirety on the Patreon page, you can listen to. So some months we might have 2 full-length interviews for you to listen to. Other times it might be 3 or 4. Just depends on how many creators come out of the woodwork asking to be on our show going forward. But definitely becoming a patron is how we are making this all possible in this world of value and finding value in work that is accomplished. If you want us to continue to produce high-quality interviews like the ones that people are praising, then by all means, point your browser to patreon.com/major spoilers and sign up today. People also get access to that Major Spoilers podcast pre-show.
Yeah.
When they sign up. This week, we talked about some stuff, man. We talked about cutting cords. We talked about trying to find analog broadcast signals. We talked about the multiverse, my view on the multiverse and big changes going on in the multiverse. You're only going to be able to find that out when you head over to patreon.com/major spoilers. I don't know too much about Scarlett O'Hara of the G.I. Joes. I know she's got red hair and that everybody had a crush on her when they were kids. But I don't know what her deal is. What's her deal?
So Scarlett was one of the original 13 Joes. Her deal was counterintelligence. So she was like the spy and the sneaky one before Snake Eyes went full ninja. But yeah, Scarlett was also one of those, the original character to do the martial arts. She was one of the first ones who was explicitly a kick puncher. So basically her thing was she would be sneaky, and if she needed to fight her way out, she would fight her way out subtly. So
she didn't do that
in
here.
Some ways.
She definitely does not do that here.
In some ways, you
blood
go back
and guts
to the point
and fist to the face and through your face and out the back of your face. And
your face is blood.
We're breaking knees, and we're doing all sorts of stuff in this issue. This feels not quite an origin story for Scarlett because it is kind of a right before I joined the Joes. This is what I was doing, kind of a little bit like Duke. But in the sense that she is already an undercover espionage agent who is willing to break the rules in order to ensure the safety of the people who are underprivileged, or in this case, who are being human trafficked, and gets her kicked out. And so she ends up working for, going into a black ops mission into Japan, where her former partner, Jinx, is the enforcer for this clan Arashikage.
Arashikage.
Yeah, that's what I said. And so what's the deal, Rodrigo, with Jinx and Scarlett? Do you know, is this something from the cartoon shows?
I don't think so.
I don't think remember. Jinx ever made it into the cartoons.
Yeah, I don't ever remember seeing her in the cartoon. But yeah, they're roommates. They're pals.
Are they more than pals? Are they more than roommates, or are they just roommates?
So this book feels like they're more than roommates, but the book is like kind of coy about it, which is a little strange given how not coy it is about, other themes, not just the violence, right? But other themes that are happening alongside it. You'd figure that if they were gay, they would just come out and say it. Like, it's possible that they've just never pulled the trigger on it, right? It's like maybe the fact that they're gay isn't the issue. The fact is that they haven't like gone for it. They haven't like smooched or gone on an actual date or whatever, But it does feel, because it's a very emotional relationship. But men are often repressed. Women tend to have more emotional relationships. Maybe they are just pals.
Yeah.
But in this book, it doesn't say explicitly.
Yeah, and so that's why I asked, because I don't think in anything else that we've read where we have seen anybody potentially being anything other than, heterosexual peoples. Have we? I don't think we have.
I mean, not necessarily openly, for all we know.
Yeah, nothing that's been spelled out in any of the other characters that we've been introduced to in the Energon universe that are anything other than the way that they're presented. And I wonder, because you said they play this very coy, when this property was over at IDW Publishing, not Scarlett, but I'm talking about the whole G.I. Joe stuff over at IDW Publishing. There was a bit of controversy when they switched up one of the characters. And the fans really, a certain section of the fans really retaliated. And I think that may be not necessarily the reason, but one of the contributing factors to IDW no longer having that G.I. Joe property. Now, I could be wrong in reading into it based on all of the bad publicity that came out of that particular character change. And then the subsequent, G.I.
I mean that's
at
possible.
IDW Publishing. So it could be an order from Hasbro saying no gay characters.
Yeah, it's possible.
Or maybe they're just letting people
mostly
read into it as they want.
I guess the thing is that I was gonna say we're at a point where you don't need to do that anymore, right? As like Korra and Asami held hands so that everybody else
so
could
that
run.
Jinx and Scarlett could kiss.
Yeah. So that Korra and Asami held hands so that Garnet could marry herself,
right?
So that Jinx and Scarlett could kiss.
Yeah,
but there is a strong it's political. There's a strong backlash to a lot of this sort of storytelling going on in the country right now. And if you're a big corporation that's trying to get your properties out there, you could I can definitely see them being like, hey, last time we did this, people really hated the gay stuff. And even if you say, well, not everybody did, it's like, yeah, but very loud people hated the gay stuff. So let's keep it under wraps. If that was the case, that would be sad. But this is all speculation. We don't actually know.
Yeah. I mean, we're just speculating on things we know nothing about in this, and who knows what has gone forth since this. The G.I. Joe series is only in its 4th issue, coming up next month or at the end of this month. So a lot of things can happen. I guess I would also say, in general, large corporations tend to be conservative. And when I say tend to be conservative, I don't mean Republican. I mean, they tend to be conservative in how they deal with certain subject matters, how they deal with money, how they deal with how their IP is presented, in that they tend to not want to cause waves. And I think after the last wave, Hasbro, we see them also kind of doing that over on the Wizards of the Coast stuff too. So yeah.
I mean, there's literally the storyline going on in Magic right now is that one planeswalker is in a transdimensional race to win a magical MacGuffin so that her girlfriend can also planeswalk again. So there's a very gay, wacky racist story going on in Magic right now. So
okay.
Take that as you will.
Responding? How are the fans responding?
I mean, I had partially because most of my followers and stuff come from major spoilers. So we've spent years kicking out the chodes, right?
Yeah.
So most of my social media, people are positive about it, or if they're negative about it, they're negative about the Magic set, right? They're like, I think this is stupid. They shouldn't have Wraith cars. And you know what? I shouldn't say with that voice because I respect that. I like the race cars, but I respect that somebody else doesn't want race cars in their Magic. So forgive me for that. That's fair. But I haven't heard anybody complaining about the romance. In fact, several years ago, there were these two characters that were romantically involved, and then they brought in a writer to write a novella, and the guy didn't know. I think nobody told him.
Oh, okay.
And so, or he ignored it, and they wrote this thing and made some different relationships, and that people were upset about. So it's people do care about the relationships of these characters, and they care about that. Canonically, that's what matters to a lot of people is who's boyfriend and girlfriend and who's broken up, and how dumb is Jace being because his girlfriend is not talking to him.
Jace is dumb.
Yeah,
I think that it's interesting though, because I can't recall in the previous arcs any type of romantic kind of interaction, whether it be hetero or otherwise.
Yeah.
And I feel like, for this to be the place where the first time we have a little bit of romance coming in, it kind of doesn't suck. I don't know if was there anything in the Duke? I don't feel like there was.
Oh, no, there's no romance in Duke. Duke is like, I'm a man and I've got man things to do, like punching and kicking and shooting people.
There might have been something going on with the Baroness trying to do a femme fatale thing, but I don't think that he responded to it.
Duke shuts that down.
No,
I'm a Ken doll. There's nothing going on here.
And one of the things that, as a long-term member of G.I. Joe fandom, I have come to terms with, is there is a chunk of G.I. Joe fandom who you don't necessarily see in other comic books. And they are the kind of the paramilitary types. Some of them are actual ex-military. Some of them are people who are in this for the realism. So, the people who love the Larry Hama series, that is ongoing, by the way. That Larry Hama series where they had, people complaining that they replaced Snake Eyes, that has continued and is still coming out from Skybound.
Yeah.
But I feel like there is that element there. And by no means am I saying that is the portion of the people that are going to immediately say, a lesbian relationship is a problem. But I am saying that there's definitely kind of occasionally there's a manly man kind of thing to it, and
for whatever reason,
soldier vibe.
For whatever reason, I always thought that, based on what I saw in the cartoons and what I saw in the comic books, I always thought that Scarlet and Snake Eyes had a thing for each other.
They did. Scarlet and Snake Eyes were married in the Marvel continuity.
Yeah. So
but if I'm just cartoon. Scarlet's thing was with Duke.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it doesn't bother me anyway. It was just so, dancing around the relationship in this piece. They keep saying, "Oh yeah, we were partners." Okay. But then you're living together and partners can mean a lot of things. Exactly right. So that's why I brought it up. I didn't mean us to get off into a big giant tangent on that. But I just wanted some clarification on how other people read it, because I read it as, they're partners and Jinx has didn't return from a mission, and then Scarlett finds out that Jinx is still alive, and she's heck bent on getting Jinx out of the clan. And in order to do that, she infiltrates a clan, and they have to steal a mysterious device. And boy, Rodrigo, let's talk about capitalism.
Well, definitely. This story has everything: capitalism, the Yakuza, little guy named Storm Shadow. But yeah, so turns out that the thing that the Arashikage want to get has been stolen from them by a Yakuza. I don't know what the unit of a Yakuza is. Gang, clan, I don't know. And
a murder of Yakuza.
A murder of Yakuza. So they're like, okay, Scarlett, Scarlett breaks in and she's like, I beat up your ninjas. I want to join your clan. And they're like, okay, if you go get this sword for us, well, we don't have the sword yet. If you go get this weapon for us, then you can join the clan. And so they send her in, and it turns out that the weapon is a sword, or the Yakuza are guarding it, and like Cobra is in the market for it. And so you end up with this sort of three-way like battle between the Arashikage with Scarlett, Storm Shadow, and Jinx, and the Yakuza and Cobra trying to get this sword. And because the Yakuza were originally going to sell it to Cobra. So Cobra shows up as the buyer, and then they see that everything's exploding and they get involved. And Cobra Commander's in this.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed the Cobra Commander comic, he's back. And Cobra now has like this must happen years, months afterwards.
Oh, definitely.
I guess at the end of the Cobra Commander one, we see like them like doing a coup with like full on like Cobra cyborgs and stuff. So yeah, I guess that time has passed.
I kind of like this story, especially when the final page reveal is, oh, it's not the old man of the clan that is the power. I've been standing next to the power wielder this entire time, and that Energon sword is making him go a little bit insane. Surely that will be okay as this series progresses. I liked it. I dug it. I don't know. There's something about, fighting the Yakuza and climbing up, 37 floors and fighting the big bad and
yeah, sure.
Figuring out a mystery and a lock and all of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, they're doing this because they want us to do this. Therefore, we should do this to anticipate that they're thinking that we're going to do this. Right? Like there's a lot of like Scarlet big braining, like everything that's happening as this plan continues to like get progressively more and more lethal as things go wrong and new things develop. So yeah, definitely. It's pretty good.
It's a pretty good action, just an action adventure. Like you could classify it in that buddy cop, Iron Eagle type, story set. Where it's, the Jinx and Scarlet against everyone else, and they've got to do all these things and take the bad guys down. And, with every page turn or with every issue that we're getting, it seems like the stakes get higher and higher. First it's only like, oh, we only have to fight our way up 68 floors of Tower 2 in order to get this weapon. Now we've got the weapon. Oh no, now Cobra shows up and everybody's shooting and blasting. Now we have to get away. I thought it was very enjoyable myself. I don't know what you guys thought.
I really like it. And I think that probably my favorite part about this, is it 5 issues? Yeah, 5-issue limited series. Traditionally, if I were saying, hey, this were the Devil's Due or the IDW or even the Marvel take, this would not be a story starring Scarlet. This would be a story starring Snake Eyes. And Snake Eyes is really, I feel like, obviously absent here.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me more interested in where the hell is Snake Eyes in this reality. Kind of like, the reveal that Megatron's not in play because Megatron was in the hands of Cobra in that last miniseries. This is really lovely. And I feel like if if we were to say this plot, take this plot and the bare bones of it, or even, the specifics of it and say, this has the Saint or this has James Bond, and they go in, they're undercover, they find out, an old friend, their partner, possible ex-lover is involved, and play it completely straight. I really like the fact that Scarlett here gets to be the kick-ass ninja, gets to have, I cut a hole in my stomach and I hit a razor blade in it just in case I needed to kill somebody.
In case I got punched in the gut, there's no way that will backfire on me.
Right, but it's one of those 80s moments. It's one of those things that you just scream, oh man, Jean-Claude Van Damme did this, I'm sure, in one of his, Cyborg or whatever his films were. Or maybe it was, the fat guy in his 3-word movies, Hard to Kill, Out for Lunch. What is his name? Steven Seagal. Yeah, that guy. So seeing Scarlett in this role as the counterpart to Storm Shadow is really a nice new take on Scarlett. And it kind of gives Scarlett an agency. And,
this is definitely her story and her mission to lose. And by saying mission to lose, it's not just gain the ultimate weapon, but also getting Jinx back and getting information back to her unit.
Yeah. As someone who makes the mistake of reading the comments, sometimes, you go through, I think the thing that I kept finding the people asking, where's Snake Eyes? Where's Snake Eyes?
He's in here, right? Isn't he in like one of the panels or something? Or he's like a bit player that comes in one of the pages? I could have swore that he was.
Nope. The hard
probably why I get him and what's his?
They're like the Arashikage have black clad ninjas too.
Yeah.
But none of those guys are Storm Shadow, I don't think. Sorry, Snake Eyes. Yeah.
None of them are overtly identified as Snake Eyes. And I didn't catch, and I was looking for a moment of, hey, look at this guy in the background. Oh, could this guy be Snake Eyes? And I didn't really find any. So that doesn't mean that it's not there. It means
maybe I just assumed, if you're a ninja, you've got to be Storm Shadow or Snake Eyes. Or both.
Well, and that's true. And Jinx is one of the ninjas. There's a whole bunch of G.I. Joe ninjas, including Scarlett herself, which, that is another thing that is really cool about this is G.I. Joe has not traditionally been strong on females. Don't get me wrong. They have some great female characters. Jinx is one. Scarlett is one. Lady J can be fascinating. But they're usually outnumbered 10 or 12 to 1. So having them be the focus of this story, again, it really sticks out for me as, the ancient G.I. Joe fan going, this is something I haven't seen before. And this is really a nice way to kind of modernize things and get away from 1982, but also they're still honoring everything that went before. Because Storm Shadow is Storm Shadow, and we see all of the bits and pieces, and we're building this, again, Skybound is building this combined Energon universe in a way that feels like it's going to stick better than when it did when IDW went, and by the way, the Transformers have always been around in the Ghostbusters world as well. Just roll with it. Not that that's wrong either. I enjoyed those.
Don't forget, by the way, Transformers have always been around the My Little Pony universe as well. So
they're best friends.
They're all part of the thing.
Rainbow Dash and Ironhide actually have a game of Axis and Allies that they have been playing since 2012. And they get together every once in a while and they play a couple of turns.
Let's so we've talked about violence and the violence level in the previous books, and depending on which book you read, sometimes the violence is way amped up, and then sometimes it's not. Like Duke didn't have as much violence as Transformers or Cobra Commander or whatever. There's some violence. I mean, there's some bloody violence in Scarlett. When I said she punches somebody in the face and the fist goes through the face and then through the head and out the back of the head, there's plenty of that in here. There's a scene where she is, I think it's in issue 2, where she is beat up and tied up, and she does a thing where she gets untied and convinces the ninjas to shoot and break open the glass full of weapons, and then she just goes to town murderizing these guys with ninja stars and katanas and samurai swords and splitting people in two and bloody prints everywhere. So there is that in this book as well. I don't think it is, and as Matthew said, she reaches into one of her open wounds to pull out a razor blade. So there is some violence in it. But I mean, at this point, should we be surprised that there's blood and guts in a
No.
comic book that is about soldiers?
In a comic book that's about ninjas and a magic sword that cuts you in half and steals your soul, I'd be mad if there weren't at least some implied violence. And again, don't get me wrong, I don't want every story to be filled with blood and guts any more than I want every story to be filled with, the sexy. But when it makes sense, like when two powerful ninjas are chopping each other apart and Scarlett's trying to fight her way through a pack of, let's just say, cannon fodders. Yeah, I want to see something. I want there to be some cutting. I don't want it to be the sword equivalent of Stephen's complaint about everybody jumps out of their plane right before the missile hits. There should be, but in my estimation, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, I think it goes most violent, top of the heap was that Transformers.
Yeah.
I would say Scarlett comes in just below Cobra Commander, but
I would
a little bit above Duke. Yeah.
No, I would probably go, if I went to order of violence, it would be Transformers, Cobra Commander, Scarlett, Duke, Void Rivals.
Void Rivals. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
I
And
mean, that's that. I mean, if we're just talking about the amount of blood and guts, that's literally the way that it kind of plays out.
And I
know some of our, and I only bring this up, and I'm going to bring it up for the couple more series that we do, is because there are a couple of our listeners who have said, hey, I love Transformers, or I love G.I. Joe. I would like to read it, but I am kind of turned off by all this discussion of how much violence there is in the book, or the blood that there is in the book. And so, just giving people a little heads up as we talk about these things, because some people have their beloved plane explodes and then parachute opens fantasies about G.I. Joe. And then they get to this thinking it's going to be the same thing. And they're just like, oh my God, what did I buy my 8-year-old? I must rise up with my other million moms.
And there is nothing wrong with wanting that. There's nothing wrong with wanting, a narrative that doesn't have that kind of blood. Or if the violence is there, the violence is treated with, the discretion
Kid
shot
gloves,
rather than
cut away with just a splash.
You have to remember that Skybound is the publishing imprint of founded by the man who gave us Invincible,
and
where a man beat his 16-year-old child into a literal pile of blood, and The Walking Dead, which is filled with blood and guts, and that 4-page sequence of Glenn getting his head bashed in graphically on screen with a bat. I mean,
but Skybound is also the home of Skybound Comet, which is the kid imprint of stuff. So, and people
I feel
just like when we talk about Boom and we talk about Arcadia, that's kind of that imprint of Boom Studios. And so sometimes people just say, oh, well, if it's Mouse Guard, it's Boom Studios. If it's, G.I. Joe, it's got to be friendly enough, just like I've seen with the Skybound Comet stuff. So you're right. Robert Kirkman did found this stuff, and he's got his Ryan Ottley eye on well, not Ryan. Well, maybe Ryan Ottley's eye, who knows? But he's got his eye on the more violent side. Because there is a dopamine reaction that happens when you see Scarlett throwing ninja stars into bad guys' heads. So I get it. I mean, it doesn't really. I think the only one that really bothered me was with Transformers. The rest of the stuff has not really bothered me. It was just the sheer glee that the Decepticons had with the ability to kill and to kill their own. Right, so they're ripping apart one of their own to get his energy. That is just disturbing to me. And so, that's why I bring that up. So, but overall, I thought it was pretty good. I think the art by Marco Ferrari is really good. I like the sometimes manga-esque influence that we see on the page, in places. I like that a lot. The colors work well for me. I wanted it to be a little longer.
Yeah. I actually I've felt that about a couple of these series, and I feel like that may possibly be just our brains kind of being in that 6-issue graphic novel thing that's become kind of the standard in the past 20 years. But also, I feel like, as I said about the Gatchaman earlier in the episode, sometimes when you have 5 limited series as opposed to 25 issues of one series, it kind of can feel like you're not necessarily following a connected narrative. It feels like here's this piece, and then I worry that when we get into G.I. Joe, we're not going to have this kind of Scarlett focus or this Scarlett centric thing where the character doesn't really carry that same weight. So I definitely agree with you that I would have liked more of this. And I feel like if you're going to give anybody an ongoing, Scarlett is a great choice. I mean, there are a lot of Joes that I would like to read a book about, but Scarlett, I think, can carry 100 issues.
Didn't Snake Eyes have his own series for a while?
G.I. Joe, in the last days at Marvel, G.I. Joe was actually cover named Snake Eyes and G.I. Joe.
Okay.
Right. I don't think he's ever had his own ongoing.
Maybe that's what I'm just thinking of, is that naming.
Yeah, there was a limited series that came out about the time of the Henry Golding Snake Eyes movie in, what was that, 2020, 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it was ongoing, yeah.
Matthew, what are your final thoughts on this?
As always, as the old dude, I want you to know that if you've loved G.I. Joe since the beginning and you're like, oh man, what have they done to my Scarlett? Some really good stuff. This is really, really unique in the G.I. Joe stories that I've read. Not just because it's the focus on Scarlett, but the way the focus is placed. And the art is interesting. I'm not necessarily as keen on it, I think, as you are, Stephen, but I feel like this art has got a lot going for it.
I don't know where I've seen his art. I don't know where I've seen his art before, but I do dig it. There's something about it that seems, like I said, manga-esque, but also just has a lot of energy behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess is the only way I can describe it. It looks like the only things, let's see, he did The Frontiersman, he did Antioch.
Frontiersman, which I loved.
Yeah, those are the only things that I know that he's done over at Image, and it may look like that's the only place he's done stuff. So, yeah. Rodrigo, what did you think of this thing? What are your final thoughts?
I mean, I enjoyed it. All of these Energon books, at their absolute worst, they're very readable. Like, even if you're not necessarily into what's happening, it's like they're well paced and generally are going somewhere and interesting things keep happening. I like this one. I like Matthew. I thought it just, like, the immense restraint to not have Snake Eyes in this is noteworthy by itself, right? Setting up Scarlett as potentially Storm Shadow's rival is great. You know, who knows if we're ever going to see Snake Eyes. And now I'm like, what's a G.I. Joe universe without Snake Eyes like? And I'm not saying like what's a party without Dip? Like I'm saying, like, yeah, what would that look like? And, you know, maybe it would be interesting. Maybe it would be cool.
Yeah. All right. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Scarlett. We've got 2 things left to look at for the Energon universe. Next week, it is Destro. Very much looking forward to that. And then however many issues of G.I. Joe have been released, the newest version, not the Larry Hama version. We will be doing that in the last week of February. And then we're done with that whole Energon universe for the foreseeable future. And we'll get back to things like the Ultimate X-Men and I Heart Skull Crusher and General Topic, ? Zombie something also coming up later this year, and TBA. All of those great things you can look forward to this year through the Major Spoilers podcast. And of course, this show wouldn't be made possible without the generous support of our fine patrons at patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Without these fantastic heroes, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you, heroes. Next week on the show, as I said, we will be doing Destro. Why? Because we know that you love comics and we do too. And we will talk with you soon.
Fat the X-ray vision of a Superman. I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I bag and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm Stark Raven rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast. Being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.